Growing up, my life was what many would call a fairy tale. My name is Evelyn Harrison. I was born into the Harrison family, one of the most influential families in our city. Our name was always in the papers for one event or another, but behind closed doors, we were just a regular family. My father ran Harrison Industries, a massive conglomerate with its fingers in everything from tech to fashion. I spent my childhood in large mansions, attending posh schools, and going on extravagant vacations. But despite all that, I never felt truly connected to that lifestyle. I enjoyed simple things, like reading a good book or having heartfelt conversations with close friends. During one of our family events, I met Daniel. He was different from the people I was used to. He wasn't from a wealthy family. In fact, he was there catering for the event. His laughter was genuine, and he had this light in his eyes, something I hadn't seen in a long while. "Hey, you're Evelyn, right?" he asked, handing me a drink. I nodded. "Yes, and you are?" "Daniel," he replied with a smile. "I work with the catering team. This is a big gig for us." We started talking, and it felt like we had known each other for years. Our conversations were simple, genuine, and heartfelt. He introduced me to a world outside my privileged bubble. A few months into our relationship, I introduced him to my family. My father, always the businessman, asked, "What do you do, son?" "I'm a caterer, sir," Daniel replied confidently. My mother, always the gracious host, said, "It's good to meet you, Daniel. Evelyn has told us a lot about you." After some time, I met Daniel's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. They lived in a modest house surrounded by lovely neighbors. Mrs. Thompson hugged me the moment she saw me. "Oh, Evelyn, we've heard so much about you. Welcome!" Mr. Thompson added, "Daniel never stops talking about you. It's good to finally meet the girl who stole our boy's heart." As our relationship grew, I would often use my father's money to treat Daniel and sometimes gift something to his parents. It felt good to share my blessings with someone I loved. The morning everything changed began like any other. I was sipping my morning coffee when my phone rang. Seeing my father's name flash on the screen, I answered cheerfully, "Good morning, Dad." There was a pause on the other end before he replied, his voice heavy with concern. "Evelyn, I need you to come to the office, now." The urgency in his tone caught me off guard. "Is everything okay?" "Just come. I'll explain when you get here," he responded, ending the call. Confused and worried, I quickly dressed and headed to Harrison Industries. The office was buzzing with activity, but not the usual energetic kind. There were hushed conversations and many concerned faces. The receptionist, usually so chirpy, gave me a sympathetic smile as she directed me to my father's office. Upon entering, I found him sitting behind his massive desk, papers scattered everywhere. His face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Dad, what's going on?" I asked, my voice filled with worry. He took a deep breath, clearly trying to find the right words. "Harrison Industries. We're declaring bankruptcy." My heart felt like it dropped to the floor. "What do you mean? How did this happen?" "We've been facing losses for a while, Evelyn. I thought we could turn things around, but we're out of options. Our debts have caught up with us." I sank into a chair, trying to process the news. Our life, as we knew it, was changing. Returning home, I hesitated at the door, thinking of how to break the news to Daniel. When I walked in, he sensed something was wrong immediately. "Evelyn, what happened?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. I took a deep breath. "Harrison Industries is going bankrupt." Daniel looked stunned. "But how?" "We've been facing losses. I had no idea it was this bad," I admitted, tears forming in my eyes. He wrapped his arms around me, trying to comfort me. "We'll get through this, Evelyn, together." But things moved quickly after that. Our posh apartment, the one filled with memories of our love, was the first thing we had to let go of. My father's assets were frozen, and suddenly, the lavish lifestyle I had always known vanished. "We'll have to move in with my parents," Daniel said one evening as we sat among packed boxes. "At least until we figure things out." I nodded, swallowing my pride. "It's just for a short while," I told myself. But little did I know, the real trials of our relationship were just beginning. The safety net I had always relied on was gone, and now We had to navigate the world together, without the cushion of wealth to soften the blows. Moving into the Thompsons' house was a stark contrast to what I was used to. Their home was warm and cozy, but much smaller than the sprawling spaces I had grown up in. But I reminded myself that it was only temporary. At first, everything seemed fine. Mrs. Thompson would cook delicious meals, and Mr. Thompson would often share stories from his youth. However, as days turned into weeks, I began to notice a change. Simple things, like the way Mrs. Thompson would watch me when I took an extra serving of dinner, or how Mr. Thompson would turn off lights in rooms, even if I was still using them. One morning, as I was setting the breakfast table, Mrs. Thompson commented, "You know, Evelyn, back in our days, we would only use one type of jam for breakfast, not three. Helps save money." I looked at the 3 jars on the table, suddenly feeling embarrassed. "I'll keep that in mind," I replied softly. Daniel started to change too. He wasn't the easygoing, jovial person I fell in love with anymore. He would snap at small things and often come home from work visibly stressed. One evening, I tried to talk to him. "Daniel, is everything okay at work?" I asked, noticing how tired he looked. He sighed heavily. "It's just stressful, okay? We need money, and I'm trying to do everything I can." I reached out, trying to comfort him. "We're in this together. Maybe I can look for a job too?" He pulled away. "Maybe you should. It's high time." It stung. I wasn't used to this version of Daniel, but I swallowed my feelings, thinking he was just stressed. One Saturday, as I was cleaning our room, I overheard a conversation between Daniel and his parents. "She doesn't understand the value of money, Ma. She's lived a silver spoon life." Mrs. Thompson replied, "I've noticed. She needs to adapt, Daniel. We can't keep supporting her lavish tastes." Mr. Thompson added, "She needs a reality check." I felt like I had been slapped. They thought I was being a burden. Tears filled my eyes, but I kept quiet. The once warm house started feeling cold and unwelcoming. Every action of mine was scrutinized, every decision questioned. The people who had once been so accepting were now judgmental. Despite the increasing tension, I tried my best to fit in. I took up a job, started contributing to the household expenses, and even cut down on personal expenses. But no matter what I did, it never seemed enough. Evenings that were once filled with laughter and stories now became silent. The television would play in the background, but the atmosphere was always tense. Simple joys, like celebrating birthdays or anniversaries, became a thing of the past. It was clear that the financial strain was affecting not just our lifestyle, but our relationships too. I often found myself reminiscing about the old times, wishing things could go back to the way they were. But as each day passed, the divide only grew wider, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that the worst was yet to come. It was a few months into our stay at the Thompsons' home when Mr. Thompson's birthday approached. In previous years, this day had been marked by a simple family dinner at home. However, this year, they decided to celebrate at a nearby restaurant, inviting me to join them. I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. It was a chance for us to bond as a family again, away from the confines of the house. Maybe things could start to improve. Maybe this dinner could be a turning point. On the evening of the celebration, I made sure to dress modestly, not wanting to give any room for negative comments. As we entered the restaurant, I took in the familiar ambience of a place I had visited many times before. Back then, under different circumstances. The waiter led us to a reserved table. I noticed the patrons, some glancing at us, recognizing me from the old days. The thought made me slightly uncomfortable, but I pushed it aside. We settled in, and menus were handed out. I glanced through, noting the prices. Back when my family was affluent, such numbers would have been insignificant. But now, every dollar counted. Wanting to be considerate, I decided on a relatively inexpensive dish. Daniel spoke up. "I'll have the steak, medium rare." It was one of the pricier items on the menu. His mother chose the lobster, while Mr. Thompson opted for a full 3-course meal. I felt a bit surprised, but said nothing, waiting for my turn to order. As I was about to speak, Mrs. Thompson interrupted. "She'll have the garden salad and tap water." I was taken aback. "Actually, I was thinking of the chicken." Mrs. Thompson's voice had a sharp edge. "The salad is plenty. We need to be mindful of our expenses." I felt humiliated. My cheeks turned hot, and I could feel the eyes of nearby tables on us. Daniel chimed in, chuckling. "Yeah, Evelyn, can't always get the fancy stuff anymore." My heart sank. This was the man I loved? The man who once promised to stand by me through thick and thin? Before I could muster a response, Mr. Thompson added, "You should be grateful. Some people don't even get bread." Their laughter echoed in my ears, and a heavy lump formed in my throat. I felt like a spectacle, humiliated in front of an audience. With all eyes on me, I finally found my voice. "When my family was doing well, I shared everything I had with all of you. And now, when times are tough, this is how I'm treated?" Mrs. Thompson scoffed. "It's about time you learned the value of money." Daniel looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Mustering all the strength I had, I said, "I may not have the money I once did, but I still have my dignity." I stood up, leaving the table, the restaurant, and the whispers behind. The dinner, which I had hoped would be a turning point, had turned into a disaster. But it was also an awakening. I realized that while money could be lost and regained, some relationships were damaged beyond repair. And as I walked out into the cool night, I felt more determined than ever to find my way out of this mess. Morning rays streaked through the room, and with a heavy heart, I made my way downstairs. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee was a stark contrast to the cold atmosphere that greeted me. There, sitting around the breakfast table, were Daniel, his father, and his mother. The previous night's events still fresh in their minds and mine, the silence was palpable. Eager to break the tension, I decided to address the elephant in the room. "I understand last night was uncomfortable for everyone. Can we discuss it?" Daniel's mother scoffed. "Uncomfortable? That's one way to put it. It was downright embarrassing, Evelyn." His father chimed in. "What were you thinking? Making a scene in a public place? And over something as petty as a dish?" Daniel looked at me, his eyes void of the warmth they once held. "You could have taken it up with us privately." "I was hurt," I defended myself, trying to keep my emotions in check. "When I saw that you all intentionally ordered the cheapest dish for me, it felt like a slap in the face." "It's just food, Evelyn," Daniel said dismissively. "No, it's not just about the food," I countered, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "It's about respect, understanding, and love." I turned to Daniel, searching for any trace of the man I fell in love with. "Do you even love me, Daniel? Or was it always about the money?" He hesitated for a moment, then with a smirk replied, "Money is a significant addition to love, isn't it?" I felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. The weight of his words, filled with cynicism and devoid of any emotion, hit me harder than anything before. And to add salt to the wound, his mother added, "You were never a good fit for our family, always spending without thinking. Now you're just a freeloader." The hurt was too much to bear. The walls of the house, which once felt welcoming, now seemed to close in on me. Without another word, I turned away, my heart heavy, realizing that the love I thought was unbreakable was built on a foundation of convenience and materialism. Tears blurred my vision as I drove the familiar route to my parents' home. Every turn, every tree, brought back memories of a life that now felt worlds away. I wasn't sure how my parents would react, but I needed the comfort of home. The driveway looked the same, lined with the roses my mother loved so dearly. As I stepped out of the car, the front door opened, revealing my mother's worried face. "Evelyn!" She rushed towards me, pulling me into a tight embrace. Her warmth was an immediate solace, and I allowed myself a moment to just be held. Pulling back, she cupped my face, her eyes scanning for answers. "What happened, my love?" I swallowed hard, recounting the events of the past few months, ending with the disastrous dinner. She listened intently, her face a mixture of concern and anger. "Oh, Evelyn," she sighed, "you deserve so much better. I thought they loved me. I thought Daniel loved me." She brushed a strand of hair from my face. Sometimes, adversity reveals people's true colors. We were interrupted by the sound of my father's footsteps. He had a newspaper in hand, an amused expression on his face. "Is that my daughter I hear?" he said, feigning surprise. "Dad," I chuckled through my tears. He enveloped me in a hug, then held the newspaper out to me. The headline read, "Jackson Enterprises, from the brink to booming." "We're back on track," he said with a smile. I looked at him, shocked. "But how?" He chuckled. "Turns out the financial crisis wasn't as severe as we thought. With some smart moves and a bit of luck, we've not only recovered, but are thriving." I blinked back fresh tears, this time of relief. "Why didn't you tell me?" He shrugged. "I didn't want you to worry. Besides, I wanted to see who truly cared for my daughter, money or no money." My mother shot him a look. "You and your tests, John." I laughed. Typical dad. We spent the evening reminiscing, the warmth of my childhood home providing the comfort I so desperately needed. As night fell and I lay in my old room, I realized that while I had lost a partner in Daniel, I had regained something far more valuable, my self-worth and the unwavering love of my family. No amount of money could replace that. The weight of the recent events left an indelible mark on my soul, but it also gave me a newfound clarity. With renewed determination, I made my way back to Daniel's parents' home one last time, a suitcase in one hand and a folded newspaper in the other. Daniel, caught off guard, looked at me. "Evelyn, what are you doing?" "Ending this charade," I replied calmly, handing him the divorce papers. His face went pale and he stammered, What is this?" "Exactly what it looks like. I'm done, Daniel." His mother, with a smug look on her face, chimed in, "Good riddance. We knew you'd come to your senses and leave our son. It's for the best." Suppressing the urge to snap back, I unfolded the newspaper, handing it over to them. The headline gleamed, "Local business tycoon's company makes remarkable comeback." Daniel's father took the newspaper, reading aloud, his voice quivering. After facing potential bankruptcy, the company managed to not only stay afloat, but has also seen unprecedented growth in the past few weeks. My gaze never wavered. "You were so eager to label me a freeloader. It turns out life has a funny way of showing us who truly is shallow." I left the house, with no intention of ever looking back. Over the next few days, my phone was inundated with calls from Daniel, messages full of regret, apologies, and pleas for a second chance. And just when I thought I had heard the last from them, postcards started arriving at my parents' home. Picturesque landscapes, with scribbled messages from his parents, each bearing the same desperate sentiment. "Forgive us." But their words meant nothing. The pain and humiliation they had put me through were still fresh in my mind. One evening, after yet another call from Daniel, I decided it was time to put an end to this. Answering the phone, I said, "Daniel, I've moved on. Your calls, your parents' postcards, they mean nothing. We had our time, and it's over." The line went silent for a moment before he whispered, "I'm sorry, Evelyn." But apologies weren't enough. I was done giving chances. It was time to rebuild and focus on myself, far away from the toxic web of deceit and conditional love. My phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jenny. "Hey, heard there's a new art gallery opening downtown. Want to check it out?" I quickly typed back, "Absolutely. Let's go this evening." The gallery was brimming with people. The art ranged from vibrant paintings to intricate sculptures, each piece telling a unique story. Jenny and I moved from one exhibit to the next, soaking in the creative atmosphere. At one particular painting, a depiction of a phoenix rising from the ashes, I felt an odd connection. It mirrored my own journey. Jenny, noticing my fixation, commented, "It's beautiful, isn't it? The idea of rebirth, rising from adversity." I nodded. "It's symbolic. Reminds me of, well, everything." Later, as we grabbed a bite at a nearby cafe, Jenny looked thoughtful. "You know, there's this workshop next week. It's about rediscovering oneself, finding one's passion. Want to give it a shot?" My initial hesitation was evident, but then I thought, why not? "Sure, let's do it." Over the next few weeks, the workshop became a transformative experience. I dabbled in different activities, finding solace in painting. It became a therapeutic outlet for my emotions, each stroke reflecting my innermost feelings. One evening, after a particularly intense session, the workshop instructor approached me. Your work, Evelyn, it's exceptional. Have you considered showcasing it? The idea had never crossed my mind. No, I haven't, but thank you. He smiled. Think about it. Your art tells a story, and it deserves to be shared. Days turned into weeks, and soon, my small home studio was filled with paintings. The once unpacked boxes now contained art supplies. The transition was evident, from a woman scorned to an artist reborn. My father, ever the supportive figure, suggested organizing an exhibition. And with a little persuasion, I agreed. The opening night of the exhibition was a blur. Friends, family, and even strangers admired my work. The Phoenix painting, inspired by the gallery visit, was the star attraction. The evening concluded with a surprise. The workshop instructor approached, holding a check. A buyer, Evelyn, for the Phoenix painting. Stunned, I stared at the figure. It wasn't about the money, but the validation. My journey, my pain, my rebirth, it had resonated with someone. As the days settled and the exhibition came to a close, I realized that life was full of unexpected twists. But with each downfall, there was an opportunity for a new beginning. My past with Daniel was just that, in the past. I had found my passion, my calling, and for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely happy. Life had come full circle. From pain to passion, from despair to hope, it was indeed a new beginning. And I was ready to embrace whatever came my way.